And it's all kicking off in the Labour camp. GB News' political editor Chris Hope is back with us. The Andy Burnham debacle, the plot thickens. Chris, you got some fresh lines for us.
Well, we really have. It's all. I keep saying goodbye to you for the weekend, Martin. I keep coming back for more. I mean, it's too much. But this is absolutely extraordinary. Angela Rayner is backing Andy Burnham to try and come back to Parliament, to try and stand in his seat, Gorton and Denton. The attempts reported widely today that the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party, the ruling body, might try and find a way of preventing Andy Burnham from taking that seat. That is fought now by the Queen of the North. She's joined forces with the King of the North, Andy Burnham. She's widely regarded, Angela Rayner, amongst the base, amongst members. She is still popular, despite the issue with her tax affairs, which forced her to resign.
Welcome to the British political theatre, a place where the knives are long, the smiles are fake, and the colleagues are more dangerous than the opposition. You see, in the hallowed, drafty halls of Westminster, timing isn't just a virtue, it's the entire game. In politics, if you grab your chance, you reap the rewards and perhaps get a nice taxpayer-funded flat. If you hesitate, you're politically dead, buried under a pile of forgotten manifestos and cold Greggs sausage rolls. Today, we are dissecting the ultimate will he, won't he drama of the decade. It's the King of the North versus the Knight of the Realm. Andy Burnham is circling the wagons and Keir Starmer might just be looking over his shoulder a little more than usual. Quick favour, if you're loving this, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now back to the show. To understand the high-stakes poker game currently happening between Manchester and London, we have to look at the ghosts of Labour past. Westminster is littered with the corpses of the chosen ones who didn't have the stomach to pull the trigger. Take David Miliband. Remember him, the man who looked like he was engineered in a lab specifically to lead the Labour Party? Back in 2008, he had Gordon Brown over a barrel. The polls were screaming, the party was panicked, and David had more than one golden opportunity to oust the clunking fist. But what did he do? He bottled it. He waited for a perfect moment that never exists in the chaotic swamp of British politics. When his chance finally came in 2010 after Labour was turfed out of number 10, he didn't just lose, he lost to his own brother Ed in a psychodrama that would make Shakespeare tell them to tone it down a bit. David hasn't been seen in frontline British politics since, presumably wandering the streets of New York, wondering where it all went wrong. Then you have James Purnell, another cabinet golden boy tipped for the top. He quit in a fit of fury in 2009, trying to force Brown out, failed, and was out of Parliament within a year. The lesson, if you come for the king, you best not miss, and if you wait too long to come for the king, you'll find yourself out in the cold without a coat. These men were the almosts, the nearly-wheres, the stars that fizzled out because they lacked that predatory instinct required to seize the crown when the crown was wobbling. They played by the rules of polite society in a game that is essentially a polite version of a barroom brawl, but there is one man who watched all these nearly men fall and managed to survive, reinvent himself and build a fortress 200 miles away from the London bubble. Enter Andy Burnham. Back in the noughties, he was right there with the Milibands and Purnells, sitting around that cabinet table. But while they faded into the where are they now files of political history, Burnham has been playing the long game. Now don't get it twisted, Burnham has a history of falling at the final hurdle. He is, by some definitions, a serial loser on the big stage. He tried for the leadership in 2010 and was booted out in the first round, looking a bit like a deer caught in the headlights of a new Labour SUV. He tried again in 2015 and got absolutely steamrolled by the Jeremy Corbyn phenomenon. You'd think after 2 strikes a man would take the hint and go into corporate consulting or start a podcast. But Andy didn't. He realised that the air in London was toxic for him. He went to Manchester, put on a dark hoodie, started talking about trains, bus fares and the Westminster bubble, and effectively became the King of the North. It was a masterclass in rebranding. He traded the sharp suits for a more man-of-the-people vibe, and it worked. He built a power base that doesn't rely on the patronage of the party leader. He became an untouchable regional titan, someone who could criticise Keir Starmer from the safety of the M60 without fear of losing the whip. However, the North is a comfortable throne, but it isn't the big one. The big one sits in a small office in the House of Commons and eventually, if you're lucky, moves to a black door with a number 10 on it. Burnham has spent years building a reputation as the champion of the working class, the man who understands the Red Wall better than any lawyer from Islington could ever hope to. But the question has always been, when does the king leave his castle to march on the capital?
unquestionably Andy Burnham would be a better Prime Minister than the one that we've got at the moment. And the road is fast running out for Keir Starmer. And I think the challenge that he has got, and that the Labour Party have got, or the echelons with the National Executive Committee have got, is that if you block him, it's over. If you let him run, it's over. In many respects, their best chance is to let him stand. And if he loses, it rather clips his wings. But Andy Burnham, we don't agree on a whole lot of things, but he is very personable. I think he is somebody who's got an ability to be able to relate to voters and comes across well. You only have to look at the fact that in Greater Manchester, where he's the mayor currently, he does get a very significant share of the vote from voters who in a general election would not vote Labour. And I think he has got a sort of superpower politically that could be of help to the Labour Party, much as it pains me to say.
But here is the twist that is sending shockwaves through the Parliamentary Labour Party. In politics, the North remembers, and it seems Andy Burnham hasn't forgotten his ultimate ambition. The King may be about to make one last desperate, brilliant bid for the job he clearly covets more than a reliable Transpennine Express service. The catalyst for this sudden panic, the departure of Andrew Gwynn. When the former Labour minister announced he was quitting as an MP for Gorton and Denton this week, the Westminster rumour mill didn't just turn, it exploded. The air in the members' lobby is thick with two questions. Will Andy stand and will Keir let him? It is the ultimate political Mexican standoff. You see, a by-election in a seat like Gorton and Denton is essentially a golden ticket. It is a possible route back to Parliament for the man who has spent years throwing shade at the Westminster elite from his Manchester stronghold. If Burnham gets back into the House of Commons, he isn't there to be a backbencher who asks questions about local drainage or the frequency of bin collections. He's there for the crown. He is the in case of emergency break-glass candidate for a party that is starting to feel the jitters under Sir Keir Starmer. Starmer's leadership has been described as many things: professional, steady, forensic, but it has rarely been described as exciting. As the cost of living crisis bites and the government struggles to find a narrative that sticks, some in the Labour Party are looking for a bit more fire. Burnham provides that fire. He provides the populist edge that Starmer lacks. He speaks the language of the pub, while Starmer often sounds like he's addressing a High Court judge. The timing of Gwynn's exit is either a cosmic coincidence or a calculated opening, and in politics there are very few coincidences. However, the road back to London is paved with broken glass and bitter enemies. You see, the Labour Party's National Executive Committee, the NEC, is currently stuffed to the brim with Starmer loyalists. These are the gatekeepers. They are the ones who decide who gets on the shortlist and who gets tossed into the political bin. They view Burnham with the same suspicion a cat views a vacuum cleaner. Loud, unpredictable, and likely to cause a mess. Will they allow him to even run for the selection? Starmer knows that letting Burnham back into Parliament is like letting a wolf into the sheepfold, except the wolf is wearing a very stylish Manchester-made coat and has a much better approval rating in the Red Wall. Starmer has spent years purging the party of its more radical elements, trying to make Labour electable by making it look as much like a sensible firm of solicitors as possible. Burnham represents a different kind of threat. He isn't a hard-left firebrand like Corbyn. He's a populist centrist with a north-south chip on his shoulder. That is much harder to fight. If the NEC blocks him, they risk a massive backlash from the membership, who still adore Andy. If they let him in, they provide a landing strip for a rival aircraft. It's a classic damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario for the Starmer leadership. Then there is the electoral math. On paper, Labour holds a majority of 13,000 in that seat. In the old days, you could put a red rosette on a donkey and it would win. But these aren't the old days. Support for the main parties has been swinging like a pendulum in a hurricane. Nationally, the Starmer stomp is looking more like a Starmer stumble. The polling numbers for Labour are still healthy, but the enthusiasm is paper thin. Meanwhile, Reform UK is surging in the very areas Burnham calls home. They are tapping into the same anti-Westminster energy that Burnham has spent years cultivating. If Andy stands and the majority shrinks, or heaven forbid he loses, his career is truly over. He would be the man who gave up a mayoralty for a defeat. It's a gamble that would make a Las Vegas high roller sweat. And let's talk about the vibe in the tea rooms of the House of Commons. Burnham hasn't exactly spent his time in Manchester making friends with the current crop of MPs. While he's been up north being the hero of the hour, the MPs in London have been doing the hard, boring work of opposition. They see Burnham as a grandstander, someone who swoops in when the cameras are rolling, but isn't there for the late-night votes or the grueling committee meetings. Last year, before the Labour conference, he faced a massive backlash from dozens of his colleagues over suggestions he was plotting a coup. They didn't just disagree with him, they were genuinely livid. The animosity hasn't gone away, it's just been simmering like a pot of Lancashire hot pot left on the stove too long, thick, heavy and slightly burnt. The word from Labour sources is blunt. The problem with Burnham is that it's always about Andy Burnham. There's a feeling that he plays for Team Andy first and Team Labour second. In the tribal world of Westminster, that is the ultimate sin. If he does return, he won't be greeted with open arms. He'll be greeted with a wall of silence and 1,000 accidental leaks to the press about his past failures. But here's the rub. Does it matter if the MPs like him? The public likes him. The voters in the north see him as one of them, in a way they never will with Starmer. Starmer is the man you hire to handle your divorce. Burnham is the man you want to have a pint with after the divorce is over. In an era of personality politics, Burnham has the personality and Starmer has a very nice collection of blue ties. What we are witnessing is the collision of two different versions of the Labour Party. On one side, you have the managerialists. These are the Starmerites. They believe in competence, stability, and not frightening the horses in the home counties. They want to win by being the adults in the room. They look at the chaos of the Conservative Party over the last few years and think, we just need to be the opposite of that. It's a strategy based on being the least worst option. It works in the polls, but does it work in the heart?
I beg him to do it. This will be fantastic. And I urge the people, I think it was Gorton and Denton, the constituency, to get their custard pies out and be prepared to humiliate him in the voting. Because we are now in a completely different world to the one that he left. We are now basically in a almost five-party battle for power. And say the Tories don't stand, even if they do, I think the Tories will all vote reform anyway.
On the other side, you have the insurgents led by the spiritual figurehead that is Andy Burnham. They believe Labour needs to be bold, radical and unashamedly regional. They want to move the centre of gravity away from London. They want to talk about levelling up, but actually mean it, rather than using it as a catchy slogan for a leaflet. Burnham's brand is built on the idea that the system is broken and only someone from outside the Westminster bubble can fix it, even though he spent years inside that very bubble. It's a brilliant bit of political gymnastics. If the by-election is called quickly, as Labour HQ wants, Burnham has to decide stick or twist. If he stays in Manchester, he remains a powerful regional voice, but he likely watches the door to number 10 close forever. He becomes a historical footnote, the greatest Prime Minister the country never had. If he runs, he risks everything for one shot at destroying the Starmer status quo and reclaiming the party for the hinterlands. We have seen this movie before. We saw it with Heseltine and Thatcher. We saw it with Blair and Brown, the prince across the water waiting for the king to weaken. Starmer isn't weak yet, but he isn't strong enough to be complacent. The departure of Andrew Gwynn has forced Burnham's hand. He can no longer sit in Manchester and say, maybe one day. The day has arrived. The seat is open. The path is clear. If Burnham enters the race, he isn't just running for a seat. He is launching a hostile takeover bid for the soul of the party. He will use the by-election campaign to showcase why he is the better communicator, why he is the better leader, and why he is the only one who can truly unite the fractured parts of the British electorate. He will turn a local vote into a national referendum on Starmer's leadership. It would be bold, it would be witty, and it would be incredibly dangerous. The tension in Westminster is palpable. You can almost hear the sharpening of knives in the shadows. The timing is perilous. And as we know in this game, if you hesitate, you're dead. Will the King of the North cross the border, or will the Starmer machine shut the gates before he even arrives? Will we see a Burnham blitz that leaves the leadership in tatters, or will this be the final failed charge of a man who just couldn't quite reach the summit? One thing is certain, the British report will be here to watch the fallout. Whether Andy becomes the next occupant of number 10 or the latest entry in the Where Are They Now book of British politics, the drama is going to be top tier. Keep your eyes on Gorton and Denton, because the future of the country might just be decided in a draughty polling station in Greater Manchester. Thank you for watching.